In 1976, there was a Rav, one of the most prominent Rabbonim in England. His name was Dayan Michael Fisher. He was the Rav Roshi of the Federations of Synagogues of England. At that time, he had a certain issue, and he was corresponding with the Rebbe, and the Rebbe helped him out in a certain way. And as a matter of fact, the middle man between the two was one of the most precious chassidim in London. His name was Rabbi Nosson Vogel, known as Bobby Vogel, and he was the in-between between Dayan Fisher and the Rebbe. And at one point, Dayan Fisher decided that he wants to come and thank the Rebbe. So Bobby Vogel suggested that he should come to the Rebbe for a Yom Tov. And he came for Shvuos, Tavshin Lamed Vav 1976. I was a bacher then learning in yeshiva. I was a young bacher, but I remember that very, very clearly when he came. And it was a very, very interesting Yom Tov. He was an unbelievable Goen. He knew a lot. Shas, Bavli, Yerushalmi, Poskim. And that year Shvuos was on a Friday Shabbos. So the Rebbe verbringed at the end of the Yom Tov of Shvuos on Motzei Shabbos, a long verbringen. And then the following Shabbos there was also verbringen. In between Shvuos and the following Shabbos, Dayan Fisher went into Yechidus to the Rebbe, into a private audience with the Rebbe. And they discussed the verbringen. And he asked the Rebbe a question on something that the Rebbe discussed. And the Rebbe told him, next Shabbos, Emir Hashem, I will discuss it much more at length. That's what the Rebbe used to do then. He used to discuss something on the Yom Tov Dike Fabrengen, and then the Shabbos later, the Rebbe would expound on it even more. But one of the things that I remember is that Shabbos by the Fabrengen, that was one of the longest Fabrengens of that year, by the way. And the Rebbe spoke on the subject that Dayan Fisher asked, and this is the Sikha that we're going to be doing today. And I remember he was sitting behind the Rebbe, and the Rebbe spoke for over an hour and a half on this subject. And he was sitting behind the Rebbe and devouring every word. And you could see on his face, he was astonished by what he was listening, because the Rebbe was bringing from all over the place, Bavli, Yerushalmi, and Poskim, and Mefarshim. And finally, at the end of the Sikha, we were all, wow, this was some Sikha. And the Rebbe turns around to him and he says, Nu, did I pay you back my debt? Because a few days before he went into Yechidus to the Rebbe and he asked the questions. And I don't remember exactly what he answered, but it seemed like something that, with percentage, he was astonished by the Rebbe's Sikha. The minhag in Lubavitch is that after every Yom Tov, Sukkot, Pesach, Shvuos, there's a Kinus Torah, where Rabbonim get together at Rosh Yeshivas, and they say different Pilpulim and subjects in Torah. And the Rebbe, by the Fabrengen of Yom Tov, he says a subject in Nigla, subject in Halacha, which is as a shtatvus, as a partner, being a partner in this Kinus Torah, in this gathering that happens after Yom Tov. That year, Dayan Fisher was one of the speakers at the Kinus Torah. And I remember he started off that, who am I to be able to speak in this shul where the Rebbe speaks? He says, Kotointi, I am nothing compared to the Rebbe. But since the Rebbe asked that I should speak something, so I will say something based on what the Rebbe discussed by the Fabrengen. The Rebbe discussed the whole subject then. It was Shvuos, how the Yiden went through the process of Gerus, they became converts. So he spoke about the Tahalich, the process of Gerus, of becoming a convert, how that works. And he brought from the Rambam, etc. He spoke for over an hour. And at the end, he said, my dear friends, it was all in Yiddish, obviously. In my blood, there isn't even a drop of Chassidish blood. He said that with full force. But he said, what I saw here this Yom Tov, it's a mitzvah to give a ticket to every single Rav in England, that he should come and see where Torah is, where you have such a magnitude of Torah that he has never seen in his life. And he was just astonished. It was a very interesting Yom Tov then with him here. Anyway, so that is basically the Sikha that we're going to do today, that the Rebbe discussed then. And it's printed in Likutei Sichos in volume 18, pages 363 through pages 370. And we're going to see an unbelievable chidush of the Rebbe in 3 different areas. One is the general concept of Tvilas Keilim, of the vessels that we have to immerse in order to be able to use them as if something was bought from a goy. The second thing is we're going to see a whole subject regarding the selling of the chametz on Pesach. And the third subject is, why do we eat Milchigs on Shvuos? And all 3 we're going to find a common denominator and an unbelievable chidush that the Rebbe is going to bring out to us. And this is all based on one word in Rashi on Chumash. And with this, we're going to take off very, very big questions that a lot of the poskim have. So let's go directly to our subject here. In the Chumash, in Parshas Matos, Perek Lamed Aleph, Pasuk Chaf Aleph, go to your source number 1. The Torah describes in Parshas Matos how the Rebbe told Moshe Rabbeinu that he wants him to make a war with Midian, because Midian are the ones who made the Yiden sin, and the famous story with Pinchas and Zimri, etc. And therefore he should take Nikmas Hashem, they should take a revenge for the Eibishter, a revenge for the Yidden for what Midian did. When they finished the war and they came back from the war with all the booty and the goods, the Eibishter said as follows. Look at source number 1, Parshas Matos, Perek Lamed Aleph, Pasuk Chaf Aleph. It says as follows: Vayomer Eliezer hakohen al anshe hatzava haboim lamilchama. Eliezer HaKohen told the people from the war, the soldiers who were coming back from the war, this was the war with Midian, Zois chukas ha-Torah asher tziva Hashem es Moshe. This is the law of the Torah that the Rebbe commanded Moshe Rabbeinu. We're going to have over here the halachas of Hag'olas Keilim, the halachas of kashering Keilim, purging Keilim, when they have some non-kosher which is absorbed in them. Pasuk Chav Beis, Ach es ha-zohav ves ha-kosev, vessels made out of gold and silver, es ha-nechoshes of copper, es ha-barzel of iron, es ha-bdil of tin, ves ha-iferes of lead. Pasuk Chav Gimel, kol dover asher yovei bo'esh, anything which is used in fire, ta'aviru bo'esh v'tohir. Then you could put it into fire and it'll become tahir. In other words, let's say for example, you have a pot. The pot was on the fire and it cooked something which is non-kosher. How do we kosherize that? Also through fire. However, says the Rebbe, not only do you have to kasher it with Hag'olah, ach b'mei nida yischato. Also in mei nida, in water of nida, which as Rashi explains means a mikveh, you also have to purify them, you have to cleanse them in water of a mikveh. So here comes the second halacha of Tvilas Keilim. So the Rebbe here said that there are 2 things you have to do to these Keilim from the Goyim. You have to kasher them from the Isur, and then you also have to toivel them in a mikveh. What happens if I have something which is not used in a fire, like a glass? Says the pasuk continues, V'chol asher lo yovei bo'esh tavir b'mayim. Something which is not used in fire, all you have to do is put it in the mikveh and toivel it, and then everything will be fine. So we have 2 halachas here. The Rebbe says the halachas of Hag'olas Keilim, kashering Keilim, and the Rebbe says the halacha of Tvilas Keilim. Comes the Ramban and asks a shaila, what is going on here? The Ramban says this is not the first war that Yidden went to war with Goyim. Previous parshas before, we have a whole story how they went to war with Sichon and Oig. And over there also they got a lot of utensils and vessels and things. And over there, the Rebbe did not give them the halachas of Hag'olah. So the question is, why did the Rebbe wait till here, till the story of Midian, to tell them the halachas of Hag'olah, of kasher and Keilim, and he didn't do it right away by Sichon and Oig also? Let's look in the Ramban inside. Look at source number 2. Says the Ramban, V'hizir oisam ato behag'olas klei Midian meisurei hagoyim. Now the Rebbe warns them about the halachas of Hag'olah from the isur, from the prohibitions of the goyim, the things which are not kosher. V'loi amar lohem ze mitchila biklei sichon ve'oig shelokhu gam shlolam. And why didn't the Rebbe say it by the war of Sichon and Oig? Because over there they also had a big loot, a booty that they got. that. Like it says in the pasuk, there's a pasuk also later in Dvarim, Perik Beis pasuk Lamed Hey, Rak haBehema Bozaznu Lanu. That we took only the behemoths, the animals that we robbed for, that we looted for ourselves, and the spoil and the booty that we received. So we see here clearly that already by Sichon ve'oig, they already had things, and the Rebbe did not tell them the halachas of Hag'olas. Why did he wait till here? Answers the Ramban, ve'hatam, what's the reason that the Rebbe says it only here? Ki sichon ve'oig malchehoi moirihem. Sichon and oig are from a moiri. Ve'artzam, and their land, minachal as Yisraeli, belongs to it's from the inheritance of the Yiden. Vehu tarlohem kol shlalom afilu ha'isurim. So the Yiden were allowed to have everything of theirs, even the isur, even the things which are non-kosher, as we'll see in a minute in the next source. Diksiv, as it says in the pasuk in Parshas Chanon, vehoyo kivyach Hashem al Haaretz, when the Rebbe will bring you to Eretz Yisrael, what are you going to find over there? Ubatim meleim kol tuv asher lo mileisa. You're going to find houses full of goodies and good stuff that you did not prepare, and you'll be able to eat and be satisfied from it. Says the Gemara, what does that mean that you're going to find food and you'll be able to eat it? Says the Gemara in Chulin, Daf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph, kadli de chazira ishterelehu, even pieces from pork, from chazir, also was mutter to them, as we're going to see in a minute in the next source. Says the Ramban, so we see that Sichon and Oig, the Yidden, the stuff was kosher, even though it was non-kosher. It was considered kosher because it belonged to the Yidden. Aval, and we're still going to see in a minute. Aval Midian, however, by this war of Midian, loy hoya mishelahem, it wasn't theirs. Veloy lokwes artzam, and the Yidden took the land only rak linkem nikmasam, only to take revenge. That's why they killed them and they took the booty. That's why the Rebbe says that their stuff is aser. So basically the Ramban makes a distinction between Sichon and Oig and Midian. Sichon and Oig, it was all mutter, even the stuff that was aser, as we're going to see in a minute. So therefore the Rebbe did not have to tell them the halachas of Hag'olas. Mashenken, however, by Midian, the Rebbe did have to say, because it was all asur. What does it mean that it was mutter? What does that mean? Let's look in the source. See, the Ramban is talking to somebody who already learned the Gemara. So let's go back to the source and see what halacha did the Sichon and Oig have. So let's go to source number 3, the Gemara in Chulin, Daf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph, and after this Gemara, the story will be very clear. Says the Gemara as follows, the Tanya, we learned in a pasuk, Ki yirchak mimcha hamokim, asher yivchar Hashem Elokecha, when a person is going to come to Eretz, when the Yidden are going to come to Eretz Yisrael, and they're going to want to eat meat, but the Beis HaMikdash is far, so then, vezavachto mipkarcho mitzoincha, then you'll be able to shecht your meat. Says the Gemara, what is the pasuk saying over here? That you'll be able to shecht your meat even if you're not in the Beis HaMikdash? And says the Gemara, Rabbi Kiva Eimer, Loi Bahakasuv, what is the pasuk coming to tell us over here? Eloi les, Elo le'eser lohen, psar nechira. The Rebbe is telling them that when you come to Eretz Yisrael, you are not allowed to eat any meat, only if it's shechted properly. But what happens if that meat was only stabbed, nechira? That you're not allowed to eat. Why would I think that you can? Says Rabbi Akiva, Shebitchila, because in the beginning, when the Yidden were in the desert, Hutar lohem psar nechira, the Yidden were allowed to eat meat, even though it wasn't shechted with halachas of Shchita, it was done through nechira. As the Gemara explains over there, the whole thing, what exactly is nechira, but I don't want to get into it right now. However, once they came into Eretz Yisrael, they're not allowed to eat any more nechira. They have to eat only meat that was shechted properly. This is what the pasuk is coming to tell us. So comes the Gemara and asks a question by Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Yirmiyah asks a question. What happens if they have what happens if the Yidden were in the desert and they stabbed the animal, which was kosher for those days, and they have some leftovers and they brought it into Eretz Yisrael? Are they allowed to eat it in Eretz Yisrael, or no? As long as they're in the desert, they're allowed to eat this meat that was stabbed. Now, once they come into Eretz Yisrael, they're not allowed to. Says the Gemara, Amos, what is your question? When is this question viable. If you want to tell me that this was in the 7 years when they were capturing the land of Eretz Yisrael, they're allowed to eat things which are treif. How do I know that they're allowed to eat things which are treif? Tiksiv, as it says in the pasuk that we brought before, Ubatim aleim kol tuv, the Rebbe says that you're going to find houses full of goodies, and you'll be able to eat them and be satisfied. Yeah, and Rav Yirmeh bar Abba said, they were even allowed to eat pieces of pork, of chazir. You have to tell me that they're allowed to eat basar nechira? Of course they were allowed to. And the Gemara goes into a whole thing about this sugya. So what do we see from here over here? That in the time of the desert, they were allowed to eat things that today we consider not kosher, but at that time it was kosher, it was fine. Whether it was meat from basar nechira or katlit chaziri. Therefore says the Ramban that the reason why the Rebbe said the halachas of Hag'olas only by Midian, because the stuff that was by Sichon ve'Oig, there was no problem. It was all fine. It was all kosher for those days. It was either nechira or katlit de chazir. It was fine. So therefore, the Rebbe didn't even have to tell them the halachas of Hag'olas. Now, when they got to Midian, and Midian was treif take, so that's why the Rebbe gave them the halachas of Hag'olas. This is what the Ramban answers to his question of why are the halachas of Hag'olas only in Parshas Matos by Midian and not before by Sichon ve'Oig. This is how he puts it. Now, obviously, there's a lot of mefarshim that discuss it, but this is it in a nutshell. Come some of the poskim, like the ChasamSofer and the Shoylum Meishiv and a lot of others, and they ask a massive question on the Ramban. The Ramban asked a question. Why did the Rebbe wait till Midian to say the halachas of Hag'olas? And he answers, because over there was mutter. But here by Midian, the Rebbe said another halacha also. The halacha of Tvilas Keilim, the halacha that we have to immerse Keilim that you get from a goy. And that doesn't help the fact that the stuff was kosher. Because what's the whole reason that we do Tvilas Keilim? What's the reason that we have to immerse vessels? Because they belong to a goy, and they go from a goy to a Yid. The transition of that reshus, of that ownership, that is what requires Tvila. And Sichon ve'Oig for sure are not Jewish, and their stuff, the Yidden should have had to do Tvila over there also. So why does the Ramban ask only regarding Hag'olas? Why doesn't he ask about Tvilas Keilim? Why didn't the Rebbe say about Tvilas Keilim by Sichon ve'Oig? Clear? Very, very simple. Let's look inside. Look in your source number 4. There's a Ramban that came out, and the one who gave it out, his name was Harav Dr. Chevelle. He was in New York. He was a very, very big Talmid Chacham. And instead of bringing from all the Sfarim that they asked this question, I just bring what he brought in. He gave out an edition of the Ramban. He gave out an edition. So on the bottom, on the notes, he brings several people who asked this question. And we're going to quote, he brings the Shalos Tshuvas Shoyelu Meshiv, the Lembergerov, he asked this question. So look in your source number 4. In the response, Shoyelu Meshiv of the Lembergerov, Hikshal HaRamban, he asked a question of the Ramban, that we still have a question. La poskim de svirole, those poskim that say that Tvilas Keilim in Torah, that Tvilas Keilim is a mitzvah in Torah. Why? Mishum sheyotz u'mirshus akum l'kedushas Yisrael, because they went out from the reshus, from the ownership of a goy, to the kedusha of a yid. Umefarshim, and they explained the hach b'meini doischato, that this what it says over here in the pasuk in source number 1, b'meini doischato, that you have to put in a mikveh. Who didn't Torah lekeilim chadoshim? This is a halacha that even no new keilim, even keilim that did not have any isur, also have to be toivel. Veim kein, if that's the case, lo molotziv sohat Torah lesichon ve'oig gamezois. Why didn't the Rebbe tell Sichon the Yiden when they went to war with Sichon and Oig that they should do Tvilas Keilim? And that and the Ramban answer, Valonihu de kada de chazire hutru. It's not true that the food that Sichon ve'Oig used was not a problem, so therefore they didn't have to kasher. Avol mikol mokem hakelim yovayu l'kedushas Yisrael. But the kelim are definitely coming over now into the ownership of the Yiden, and although they don't have to do Hag'olas, but they have to do Tvilas Keilim. So why doesn't the Ramban ask on Tvilas Keilim the same question? And what does he finish off? And he remains with a question. Akash on the Ramban, why didn't he ask the same question on Tvilas Keilim? Why doesn't Tvilas Keilim? He also said by Sichem ve'oig. Where does it say, Take, that you had Tvilas Keilim is when it changes ownership from a goy lahavdil to a yid, that you have to do Tvilas Keilim? Look in your source number 5. This is a Yerushalmi in Avodah Zarah at the end of the Masechta. Says the Yerushalmi, Rabbi Yirmiyah Amar tzarich lehatbil, that you have to immerse the kelim that you buy from a goy in a mikveh lefi sheyotzu mitumas hanochri, because they go out from the tumah of a nochri, of a non-Jew, v'nichnesu l'kedushas Yisrael, and they go into the ownership of a yid. So b'meila comes back the kasha on the Ramban. Why does the Ramban make a deal only about Hag'olas, and why doesn't he ask the same question about Tvilas Keilim? This is the question that all the Mefarshim ask on the Ramban, and they don't answer this question. The Rebbe by the Fabrengen, he brought this question from the Ramban, and then the Rebbe said that really this question of Tvilas Keilim extends to another 2 very interesting subjects. Subject number 1 is what is called Shvuos. On Shvuos, we know that there's a minhag Yisrael to eat milchigs, dairy items. Why do we eat dairy items on Shvuos? So one of the classic answers is brought down in a sefer which is called Taimah Minhagim, the reason for the customs, and he brings from a sefer Hag'olas Yisrael. What does he say there? This is the classic answer. Look in your source number 6. Taimah Minhagim Inyonei Chag HaShavuos. Why do we eat mechol on Chag HaShavuos? Why do we eat milk on Shvuos? Lefi she'ad Matan Torah, because until Matan Torah, hutar lahem b'sar nechira u'behemot meya, they were allowed to eat behemoths that were not shechted properly, were only shechted through nechira, as we mentioned before, a form of stabbing, and even non-kosher animals. After Matan Torah, they were told that they have to shecht the animals. So therefore now they have to become part of the people who shecht. And they were told also about all the non-kosher foods. All their vessels became, all the utensils became asur. And they couldn't kasher the kelim right after they received the Torah. Farvaz, why? Because according to all opinions, Torah was given on Shabbos. And they didn't have what to eat. Therefore, that they eat milchigs, only dairy things. And therefore, therefore we eat milchigs on Shvuos, zeicher leMatan Torah. This is in remembrance to what happened on Matan Torah. No. So now comes the question, hey, wait a minute. You're telling me that the reason why they ate milchigs is because they couldn't eat fleishiks and they couldn't use their kelim. Wait a minute. In what kelim, in what vessels did they eat their milchigs? They had all types of stuff that they cooked, of milchig stuff. How were they able to eat it in their kelim if they didn't kasher their kelim? Even milchigs they couldn't eat. Unless you want to say that they only ate cheese, then you can't say that, because otherwise the minhag would be that we eat only cheese on Shvuos. Shvuos we eat all kinds of baked, cooked stuff with cheese. So the question is, how do they do it without kashering the kelim? So this is really not really a question, because as we're going to see, the Yiden's kelim were kosher even before Matan Torah. How were all the kelim kosher before Matan Torah? The Yiden kept separate milchigs and fleishiks. Do you think they kept separate milchigs and fleishiks before Matan Torah? Believe it or not, they did. You want to see? Here. Look inside. Go to source number 7. What does it say in source number 7? Parsha told us, Perik Chavav, Pasuk Daled and Hey. The Rebbe tells Yitzchak Avinu, I'm going to make your children, multiply your children like this, stars in the sky. I'm going to give to your children all these lands. And all the nations of the land are going to be blessed through you, through your children. Because your father Avram Avinu listened to me, he observed my observances, my mitzvahs, my chukim, and my Torahs. What is this? My mitzvahs, my chukim, my Torahs. Let's look at Rashi, source number 8. That he observed my observances. What's this mishmaros? Says Rashi, not only did Avram Avinu do mitzvahs, he also did the gzeiros of the Chachamim. The Chachamim always added like different gzeiros on certain things. He did that too. For example, the Rebbe says you're not allowed to marry a certain person, and the Chachamim added that also this person's sister you're not allowed to marry, for example. Right? So Avram Avinu kept even that. Shvuos l'Shabbos, all the gzeiros of Shabbos. Shabbos, we know there are 39 malachas, and then there's some additions to it. And then we have gzeiros. We have things that are the Chachamim added. So Avram Avinu, even those gzeiros of the Chachamim, also those he did. Mitzvah, dvarim she'ilu le'nichtevu, those things that even if they wouldn't have been written in the Torah, chas v'sholem, re'uyim heim litztavis, they would still make sense that people shouldn't do it. Kigen gezel, shvichas damim, like stealing, killing, etc. What's chukaisai? Says Rashi, dvarim sheyetzer hara v'umasa'olam yeshivin alein. Those things that the goyim and the yetzer hara make fun of the Yiden about this. Kigen achilas chazir, for example, like not eating chazir, ulvish hashatnez, not wearing shatnez, which are things she'ein tam bedover. These are things that just don't make any sense at all. This is a gzeir of the Eibishter on his servants, on the Yiden. So Avram Avinu kept all of this, and not only, he also kept the Torah. What's Torah? Matu Torahs? Says Rashi, lehavi Torah shebal peh halacha l'meishem Sinai. That he did everything that it said in Torah shebal peh. So we see here clearly that Avram Avinu kept all the mitzvahs and everything. So of course he kept the difference between milk and meat. So the Keilim of the Yiden definitely were not asur from basa b'cholav. But we're going to have a different question soon. And then later, if you look at source number 9, we see even more. That when Yitzchak Avinu got old, what happened? Let's look at Toldos Perik Chavzayin Pasuk Gimel. Vayiki Zakin Yitzchak, when Yitzchak became old, Vayikras Esav b'nei Agadol, the famous story that he called Esav, that he wanted to bless him, and that Yaakov came and schlepped away the brachas. Famous story. What did Yitzchak Avinu tell Esav? Ve'ato sonoch elecho, take all your equipment, tel yecho v'kashtecho, and your bow and arrow, ve'tzei hasada, and go out to the field and bring me something to eat. Says Rashi, what does it mean that Yitzchak Avinu said sono? Says Rashi, loshen hashchaza. It's an expression of sharpening. He wanted him to sharpen what? Chadad sakincha u'shchait yofe shleitachileni nevela. I want you to sharpen your knife properly, and I want you to shecht for me properly, that you shouldn't give me nevela. So we see here clearly that the Avos, they ate only stuff that was 100% kosher, the way we understand it. And later, the later generations, look at source number 10, when the Rebbe told Moshe Rabbeinu that we're going to take the Yidden out of Mitzrayim and go to Mar Sinai, what does it say? This is in Shmois, Peri Gimel Pasuk Beis, source number 10. The Rebbe said, sorry, what's going to happen when you're going out of Mitzrayim? When you're going to go out of Mitzrayim, the Yidden should know that they're going to be worshipping the Eibishter. So already in Mitzrayim, they were rehearsing and practicing all the things that they had learned from the Avos and all the halachas. So therefore, there is no question that they had separate Keilim for Milchigs and Fleishigs. That there is no question. However, the question that we have is something else. So we understand why they eat Milchigs. But the question that we have is, back to Tvilas Keilim. We said that the whole reason for Tvilas Keilim is because you go out from Nochri to Yisrael, right? The Yidden before Matan Torah, they were not considered Yisrael yet. because they had to go through a process which is called gerus. As we're going to see here, look at source number 11. What did we say before from the Yerushalmi Avodah Zarah? That Rabbi Yirmiyah said, Tzarich lehat bila Keilim, that why do we have to ToivelKeilim? Because they went out from the property of a goy, and now they went into the Kedushas Yisrael. This is exactly what happened at Matan Torah. The Yidden went through a gerus, they went through a conversion, because they went from the status of Nochri to the status of Yisrael. How do we see that? Look at source number 12. The Gemara says in Krisus, Daftar Samed Aleph, Rabbi Omer Kochem Kageir. There's a pasuk in the Torah that says, just like you, so too you should do to the convert, just like did to you. What is you and the convert? What's the connection? What's the comparison? Says the Gemara, Ma Ave Seichem, just like your parents, in order to go into Kedushas Yisrael, Lo nichnesu labris, elo bemila utvila v'artzo asdam, that the only way they were able to go into the covenant with the Eibishter was through three things: Mila, Bris Mila, Tvila. They had to immerse in a mikveh. Behartzo asdam, and they had to spritz the blood of the karbonis. Afheim, so to any convert, lo yichnesu bebris. There's only one way how he could become Jewish. Elo bemilo tvila v'artzo asdamim. If he goes through these three processes, which is bris mila and tvila and artzo asdamim. So we see here clearly that a goy, in order to go from goy to become a convert, a Yid, he has to go through a process. Which process? The same exact process the Yidden went through, B'shas Matan Torah. So therefore we see that the Yidden went over this transition. So if the Yidden had Keilim before Matan Torah, although they didn't have to kasher them, but they went through this transition and they had to do Tvilas Keilim. So why didn't they have to toivel their Keilim before they were able to use them for their milchigs? So we go back to the original question. And now let's see how the Rambam says. The Rambam makes it so clear that the Yidden then went through a proper conversion. Look at source number 13. The Rambam in Hilchos Yisur Rabbi Perik Yud Gimel Halacha Aleph says as follows: B'shloisha dvarim nichnus Yisrael lebris b'mila utvila v'karm. There's three ways how the Yidden went into a bris, like we said before: mila, tvila, immersing, and carbon. By the way, this is the halacha that Dayan Fisher spoke then by the Kinus Torah. I remember that clearly, how he said, therefore we will discuss the tahalich. We're going to discuss the process of conversion. Halacha Beis, says the Rambam, Mila, where do we see that the Yidden did bris Mila? Mila hoisa b'Mitzrayim, that they did in Egypt. Shenemar v'chol ore lo yechal b'y. It says about the carbon Pesach that someone who doesn't have a bris cannot eat the carbon Pesach. So all the Yidden had to do bris Mila. Halacha Gimel, says the Rambam, utvila. Where did the Yidden do tvila? Where did they go in immerse in water? Hoisa b'midbar koydem matan Torah. This was in the midbar before the Rebbe gave the Torah. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, v'kidashtem hayom machar v'chipsu sibloisam. That the Rebbe said that they should prepare themselves they should sanctify themselves for matan Torah, which goes on the concept of mikveh. The carbon, where does it say that they did the carbon? Shenemar vayishlach esnare b'nei Yisrael vayalu oilos. So we see that there were all the three things. Comes the Rambam halacha daled v'chein ledoiros, and the same way in the generations to come, kesheyirtze ha'akum likones labris, when a guy will want to come into this covenant, ulistoy feftachas kamfan Shchina, and to be able to come under the wings of the Shchina, v'yikabel olav Torah, and he wants to receive the yoke of Torah. What does he have to do? Tzarich milo tvila v'artzos carbon. So we see here clearly that the Yidden went through this process of conversion. So the shaila is, why didn't they have to toivel their Keilim? So now we have the second issue that has to do with Tvilas Keilim. The first question was the Ramban. Why doesn't the Ramban ask the same question regarding Hag'olas and the same thing with Tvila? That why didn't they have to do Tvila? The second question that we have now is regarding Shvuos. That l'chayda, you're saying that the whole reason why we eat Milchigs is because their Keilim, they couldn't kasher their Keilim. And we said that that's not really such a big kasher because the Keilim were kosher. The question is really, why didn't they have to toivel their Keilim? That is the question. L'chayda, just like any time you get Keilim from a goy, over here also should have done that. And now comes the third case. What's the third case of Tvilas Keilim? This is something that everybody knows. It's called mechiras chametz. When we come to sell the chametz, I'm not going to discuss now the whole concept of mechiras chametz, please, because that's another few shiurim. But the general concept of mechiras chametz is, Pesach, a Jew is not allowed to own any chametz. And therefore, what do we do? And if he has a lot of chametz in the house, there's a system that you go to the Rav, and you make the Rav as an agent to sell all your chametz to the guy, and then after Pesach, you buy it back from the guy. The question is, what happens to the Keilim, what happens to the utensils, the pots and pans that you sell to the guy? If you sell them over Pesach, then after Pesach you buy it back. Who owned the Keilim over Pesach? The guy. No? When you buy something from a guy, you have to toivel it. Don't you have to do Tvilas Keilim? No? What's the answer? Do you do Tvilas Keilim? No, huh? Why not? It belongs to the guy. Huh? Never thought of it, huh? Now you'll see something very interesting. You'll see something very interesting. Most poskim hold that you have to toivel your Keilim. Believe it or not, we're going to see that now. The one who says you don't is the Alter Rebbe. Now we're going to see a very interesting machlokes over here. Look at source number 14. There's the Noda BiYehuda, the famous Noda BiYehuda. He shouts at Shvuos Shivas Tzion Siman Yud Aleph. Now, by the way, the Shaar Hakolel Shivas Tzion was written by the son of the Noda BiYehuda, but in this Siman Yud Aleph, he quotes his father word for word. So it's a tshuva of the Noda BiYehuda. After he brings the whole lashon, the whole language of the shtar mechira, the contract with which he sells to the guy, he says as follows. Look at source number 14. Vehine paratnu, we detailed in the shtar, in the contract, she'omar kol mashe b'cheder eichlin u'mashkin. We wrote that anything which is in this room, from food and drinks, but v'lei kasavnu she'imker bistam kol mashe b'cheder. We didn't write that he's selling everything which is in the room. We only wrote that he's selling the food and the drinks. Why? Because sometimes you may have in that room vessels of utensils of iron or glass, or earthenware which is covered with lead. And if he will sell all of this to the guy, and after Pesach he will buy these things back, says the Noda BiYehuda, you will have to toivel all these Keilim. Therefore, in the shtar mechir of the Noda BiYehuda, he does not write the utensils. He only writes the chametz. That's it. So we see here clearly that according to the Noda BiYehuda, what do you have to do after Pesach? Toivel all your Keilim. Ready? We're not finished. Go to number 15, ChasamSofer. The ChasamSofer Nerachaim Simu Kuftes, also after a long tshuva, what does he say? Omnam. He tells a person who wrote him a certain question, this language that you write, that is in your shtar, that the Yid sells to the guy, the metaltlin, the vessels, the objects which are in those certain rooms. I cannot understand how you could do something like that. We're not even discussing the chametz, you're only discussing the vessels. The person or the Jew also sells the Keilim which contain the chametz. This doesn't make sense, he says the ChasamSofer. Because if you're selling also the Keilim, all these things, anything which is made out of steel, which is made out of iron, you'll have to toivel it after Pesach. When you buy it back from the guy, you're going to have to toivel all these Keilim, says the ChasamSofer clearly. And therefore, in the hour shtar mechiras chametz, the one that we have, shaloshna mefursim b'yedei talmideinu kosavnu al pi Meiri veRabbi Hagon Reb Nosson Adler Zatzal. The one that we have, who is the one that actually wrote the first one, was Reb Nosson Adler, the teacher of the ChasamSofer, the famous Reb Nosson Adler. She'eina meicher el hachametz hanidbak betfanei haKeilim. He's not selling the actual pots and pans. He's selling the chametz which is attached to them. Avaloya Keilim atzmam, not the actual Keilim, because otherwise you have to toivel them after Pesach. So we see here clearly, Noda BiYehuda, ChasamSofer, and plenty others say that if you sell the actual Keilim to the goy over Pesach, what do you have to do? Toivel them after Pesach. Ready for this one, huh? Comes the Alter Rebbe, and the Alter Rebbe does not agree with them. The Alter Rebbe says as follows, look at your source number 16. The Shtar Mechiras Chametz of the Alter Rebbe, which is printed in the back of the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch Hilchos Pesach, says the Alter Rebbe, V'chein Keilim Mechumotzim Sheyesh Aleim Chametz Be'en. That even the Keilim that have on them Chametz, also those are being sold to the Goy. And we don't find anywhere that the Alter Rebbe says that you have to do Tvilah. And we know the history in the family. Never heard that anybody ever did any Tvilah. So we have to understand, according to the Alter Rebbe, why take don't we do Tvilah of the Keilim? The Goy owns these things over Pesach. So then, when you buy it back, you should have to do Tvilah. And the Alter Rebbe doesn't say that. And I remember them by the Fabrengen. It's not in the Sikha. But in the Sikha, the Rebbe brings, by the way, his grandfather, Rabbi from David Lavut. He wrote the Sefer KavNoki, Beis Aaron. He wrote a lot of unbelievable sforim. And he wrote on the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch a lot. So over here, he also says that he tries to learn Pshat in the Alter Rebbe. But bottom line, he says that even according to the Alter Rebbe, you would have to toivel these Keilim after Pesach. And the Rebbe said them by the Fabrengen, at Istake mein Zayde, Istake my grandfather, the Lavut, he was the Rebbe's mother's grandfather. He says, aber ich verstehe nicht, was sagt. I don't understand it, it just doesn't make sense. And the Rebbe slugs up what the Rebbe Lavut said. And then the Rebbe said, and stellt sich vor, imagine if we're going to start telling all the balabustas that after Pesach they have to toivel or the Keilim. Oh, they're not going to be happy campers. But the question is, Take, we have to understand, why Take don't you have to toivel the Keilim after Pesach when you buy it back from the Goy? So we have three things that we need to understand in Tvilas Keilim. One is the Ramban, as we said before. The second one is why on Shvuos did the Yiden have to toivel their Keilim, and why after Pesach don't we toivel our Keilim? L'cheira, they go through from a Goy to a Yid. These are the three basic points, and now we're going to see how the Rebbe, with one word in Rashi and Chumash, the Rebbe takes off all these questions in one shot, and he has an unbelievable chiddush in the whole subject of Tvilas Keilim. So let's check it. Now, by the way, the Shaar Hakolel, Shnei Luchos Abris, he writes in the Sefer Masechta Shvuos, he writes that in the Rashi we could take out inyonim mufloim, unbelievable things in halacha. Although Rashi is a Pashtan, Rashi only explains the Pashat Pshat and the Pasuk, but many times we could take out of Rashi Yesodis, basic things, foundations in halacha. So let's see something in Parshas Matos what we see over here. Go to source number 17, which is the same as source number 1, but let's go through these two psukim with Rashi, and we're going to see something unbelievable. So the pasuk is like this. In Parshas Matos, in Perek Lamed Aleph, pasuk Chaf Aleph, Vayomer Elazar HaKohen Elanshei Hatzava. Elazar HaKohen told the people of the war, the soldiers, Haboim LaMilchama. What did he tell them? As we said before, pasuk Chav Gimel, Kol Dover Asher Yoveh Bo'esh Taviru Bo'esh V'Toyer. Anything that goes through fire, you should kasher it through fire. But you also have to put it in a mikveh. Anything which is not used with fire, all you have to do is just put it in the mikveh. Comes Rashi, look at source number 18. Says Rashi, lefi pshuta, in the very simple pshat. What does it mean that you have to put it in the mikveh to clean it? Says Rashi, this cleansing, this disinfection, this is in order to purify it from tumas mes, from the tuma. Amar lohen, this is what Moshe Rabbeinu told him. The Keilim need purging, need kashering, to clean them, to purify them from the isur, and and another cleansing to purify them from the tumah. Two of them. They need purging and they need tvilah. What's the purpose of the tefillah? Rabbi Seinu darshu mikan. What do Chachamim learn from this? She'af lachshiron mina isur. That to kosherize them from the isur, hit in tvila likle matches. The Rebbe wants them to put them through tvila. In other words, there's two processes here: Hag'olah and tvila. What's the purpose of Hag'olah? Letahara mina isur, to purify them from the isur. What's the purpose of tvila? Lehachshiron mina isur, to kosherize them from the isur. Which means that according to Rashi, tvila takes out a certain isur, a certain something which is not kosher. This is what it seems like. The question is, what does tvila have to do with isur? Which isur does tvila take away over here? If somebody buys something new from a goy, which was never used, there's nothing asur in it, there's no tarfus inside. Does he have to kasher them? No. Does he have to toivel it? Yes. Which means that tvila has nothing to do with isur. Why does Rashi say lehachshiron min ha'isur, to take out the isur? Which isur do you take away with tvila? Let's look in the Rambam. It's source number 19. The Rambam in Hilchos Hag'olas Asuras Perek Zayin Halacha Gimel. What does he say? If somebody buys utensils for a suda that you use for food from a goy, whether it's from iron or from glass, even if the guy never used them, you have to toivel it anyways. And only after that will you allow to use them to eat and drink. Even Rashi contradicts himself, because Rashi also makes it very clear that if it's something that was never asur, that never became treif, you still have to toivel. Where does Rashi say it? Right up here in our Pasuk. In our Pasuk, the next Rashi, what does it say? On the words of the Torah, look at source number 20. Anything which was not used in fire, you should put into the mikveh, says Rashi. Anything that you don't use through fire, like let's say cups or bottles, which you don't put on fire, and use it only for cold. They did not absorb any isur, anything which is not kosher. Taviru b'mayim, you have to put it in water. What does that mean? Matbiloi v'dayu. All you have to do is put it in the mikveh. You have to put it in the mikveh for what? To take out an isur. How did Rashi say before lachshiran mina isur? To take it out from the isur. So therefore, we're not learning Rashi correctly. When we're going to look perfectly in Rashi, the words, we're going to see an unbelievable point. Look at your source number 21. What does Rashi say? Amar Lohan, Moshe Rabbeinu told them as follows. Tzrichim Keilim Giyul. Why do they need purging? Letaharom mina isur. To be metahir them, tohir, pure from the isur. Rabbi Seinu darshu mikan. What do our Chachamim explain to us? She'af lehachshiron mina isur. In order to kosherize them from the isur, hit in tvila, you need to toivel them. We see that Rashi uses a different expression. When it comes to kashering the kelim, what does he say? Letaharom mina isur, to purify them. When he says Tvilas Keilim, he says lehachshiron mina isur, to kosherize them from the isur. Why does he use here the expression letaharom and here lehachshiron? What's the difference? We're going to see something unbelievable now. Let's see how the Rebbe explains the difference between letaharom and lehachshiron. Look at your source number 22. We're going to quote the Rebbe's words here in Likutei Sichos, and here comes a chidush nifla in the whole subject of Tvilas Keilim. The Rebbe explains as follows. Look at source number 22. Der Geder von tahara. When do you use the expression tahara, to purify? Is shayech nor ba'azach was hot in zich tumah oder isur. Only something which has in it and absorbed either a tumah, impurity, or an isur. So then I want to take that stuff out, that garbage out. I call that letaharom. Underiber vert Hag'olah. Therefore, Hag'olah, which is the kosherizing process, what does Hag'olah do? The fire goes in and takes out the garbage, the treif. Was nimmt ruis die Metzius so isur, was is balu under Keli. The Hag'olah, this purging that goes in and burns out the isur and takes it out. What do we call this? angerufen letahara min ha'isur. It makes a tahara, it purifies the kelim. Lehachshiran, is viloshen hachana al derech hechsher mitzvah. Lachshira means to prepare them. Die Keli wird mucher no muchsher zu kennen sich benutzen mit ihr. I have a Keli, I cannot use it. I go through a process, it prepares them that I now can use it. In other words, this vessel goes through a process. Das heißt, der Uftu von Tvila, the whole concept of Tvilas Keilim, is nicht zu herausnehmen die Metzius so Iser von der Keli. It's not to take out something that was absorbed that was non-kosher. No, das hat sich schon aufgetan durch Hag'olas. That Hag'olas takes care of. Or there says lechatchila is going to or there was maybe no Isur there altogether because it was something bought new. What is the purpose of Tvila? Zu machen die Keli muchshe verheistamsches von Yiden, was ist mushlat von Isur. This is a special process to make this pot, this vessel, this plate, whatever it is, that it should be ready for a Jew to be able to use it in a way that it's categorically removed from any concept of Isur. Von efsharis valilos Isur. That when a vessel is in a goy store, there's a possibility that it will be used for something non-kosher. In order for a Jew to use it, we have to take away all possibilities. How do we do that? We take it, we immerse it in a mikveh. By immersing it, we take away any possibility that now this will be used for something non-kosher. And only then can a Jew use this plate. And the Rebbe continues. When the keil is in the reshus von Nochri, as long as the vessel is in the property of the goy, afilu wenn hat lepoil sich damit nicht mishtamish gewen mit dat varisur, even if practically speaking he never used it for something non-kosher, there's still a problem. What's the problem? Is aber dort die efsharius as soll azeiton. He has the possibility to use it with something non-kosher. Und der Rebbe, when the Keili geht darüber in der Reshus von Yiden, when the Keili goes over to the property, ownership of a Jew, zu ahistamshes was in ihr ist nicht da afilu div sharius zu benutzen sich mit advarisur in a type of usage that it's impossible that there should be even the possibility to use it for something non-kosher. Darf die Keili haben Tvila. The Keili needs a Tvila, needs a immersing lehachshiran mina iser, to prepare them from the status of non-kosher. In other words, kashering takes out the physical isur from the keli. It burns it out. Tvila is like a label that we put on the keli that until now it was in an environment that you're able to use it for whatever you want, so it's not made for a Jew. The moment I toivel it, I gave it like a label that now this is like I say, no non-kosher can come in contact with this. It's a transition label. This is what Tvilas Keilim is. And therefore, even a new Keili that never had any non-kosher still needs to be toivel. That's what the Yerushalmi said, what we had before in source number 11. What did the Yerushalmi say? That you have to toivel the Keilim. Why? It's a transition point. It makes no difference if it was used or not, even something new. You want to make a transition, take a vessel, and a Jew wants to use it, first you have to toivel it. You're going to say, where do we see something like this? That even if I didn't use it for non-kosher, I still consider it that because I could have used it for non-kosher, I need that transition. We have something in the same Parshas, in Parshas Matos. By the story of Midian, the Rebbe told them not only about the vessels, the Rebbe also told them about the ladies of Midian. What did the Rebbe say? Look at your source number 23. In Matos Perek Lamed Aleph Pasuk Yud Zayin. The Rebbe says, "Ve'ato hirgu kol zochar batov." Take all the children and kill them. Ve'chol isha yudas ish lemishkav zochar, and even a woman who can be married, also harogu you have to kill. Says Rashi, what is it with v'chol isha yudas ish? Any woman that can know a man, says Rashi, lu'uyo lehiboil, she can get married. Afal pisha lo nivalo, even if she never got married yet to a goy. The mere fact that she can, that in itself puts her in a non-kosher status, and therefore they have to get rid of her. And the same thing we find in the Ritva. The Ritva was one of the Rishonim. Look at your source number 24. The Ritva in Avodah Zarah, the Fayin Hamid Beis. He said it very clearly. He was in the time of Tosfos, right after Rashi. Klei Seuda, when he talks over there in the Gemara about the vessels of a meal, Pirish umishum de soifan lishtamish beiser. Since ultimately these vessels will be used for non-kosher, can be used for non-kosher, hitzricha kosuv tvila av bechadoshim. Even if they are new, you still have to toivel them. So what do we see here? That what is the concept of Tvilas Keilim? Let's summarize this. What's the concept of Tvilas Keilim? Tvilas Keilim is a simple concept. If I have a vessel that is in the property of a goy, therefore there's the possibility of that keli being used for non-kosher, a Jew may not use that keli. A Jew wants to use that keli, he has to label it that this keli is only for kosher purposes, and that's what he does by putting it in the mikveh. Once he gives that label, now we can use that keli. Is everything clear so far? Okay? So Tvilas Keilim doesn't take out any tumah. Tvilas Keilim is like when you go through the border and they put a stamp on your passport that, yes, you are kosher. You did not do anything wrong before that, but they're just basically confirming, yes, you are okay. And the same thing is Tvila. What the Tvila does, takes it out from a possibility of being used for non-kosher, and no longer, it's going to be used only for kosher. If that is the case of Tvilas Keilim, now we can understand all the three questions that we asked. What did we ask about the Ramban? Why does the Ramban ask only about the kashering of the Keilim and not about the Tvilas Keilim? That why did Sichon ve'oig not have to toivel their Keilim? And the answer is very simple. The Ramban explained that what Sichon ve'oig was using, all the stuff that they were using was all kosher sort of, at least for those days. It was all stuff that the Rebbe permitted to the Yiden. That means that there was nothing Isser, which means that there was no possibility of it being used for something which is non-kosher. If there was no such possibility, then there's no need to toivel the Keilim, because the Keilim were in a situation that only kosher is being used. Kosher, permitted, is being used. So therefore there's no need for Tvilas Keilim. Therefore the Ramban doesn't have to ask about Tvilas Keilim, because the moment he made it clear that everything that Sichon ve'oig was using, that Eibishter permitted, you don't need any Tvilas Keilim. The same thing is with Mechiras Chametz, Mechiras Chametz, yes. What did we say? That the guy owns the Keilim during Pesach. Is that true? 100%. Belongs 100% to the guy. Physically, where are the Keilim? Are they in the house of the guy, or are they in the house of the Jew? Where are they? If we would, the fact was that how do we sell the Keilim for Pesach? That we take all our stuff and we bring it to the house of the guy. So now the guy, in theory, has access to those plates whenever he wants, and he can physically take them and use them. Oh, in that case, you bet you would have to do Tvilas Keilim. You may even have to do Hag'olas Keilim, who knows? Because they were in the reshus of the guy, they were in the property of the guy, so you don't know what happened to these things. But since the fact is that the Keilim were in my house, in the house of the Jew, locked up, although I give permission to the guy to come whenever he wants, because they are his, but since, practically speaking, physically, the guy never came close to them, because he never came close to them, there was never a possibility that these Keilim were used for non-kosher, therefore we don't have to toivel them. Now we understand why the Alter Rebbe says that we don't have to toivel the Keilim after Pesach. Why? Because the whole reason for Tvilas Keilim is because maybe the possibility of the guy using it for chametz, here it's physically impossible for the guy to use it because it's locked up in my house, although it belongs to him. Because just belonging is not enough of a reason to make it that you have to toivel it. It has to be that physically the guy should be able to use these Keilim. And by Mechiras Chametz, he can't, because they're locked up in the Jew's house. Therefore, we don't have to toivel the Keilim after Pesach. And the same thing when it comes to the third question that we asked. We asked, when we get to Shvuos, why didn't the Yidden have to toivel their Keilim? And the answer is again the same thing. Although the Yidden went through the transition from non-Jewish sort of to Jewish through the Gerus, but the Keilim were 100% kosher. Because we said before that the Yidden were careful with the separation of Milchigs and Fleishigs. The Yidden were careful with all the halachos of kashrus. So therefore there was never a possibility of these Keilim to be used for something which is non-kosher. Everything was perfectly fine. So therefore they didn't have to do Tvilas Keilim. So if that's the case, now everything makes sense. All based on that one word of Rashi, leachshiran, to prepare them. Because what Rashi is trying to say is that the whole concept of Tvilas Keilim is transition from the possibility of being used to non-kosher to the non-possibility. But if before everything that was used is kosher, then there is no issue. And therefore, the Yidden Shvuos did not have to toivel their Keilim. And that's why we eat Ma'acholei Cholov on Shvuos, and everything is nice and dandy. So now we can see something very, very interesting over here on two of the Chiddush here, of how the Rebbe takes a Rashi in Chumash, finds one word, and through this one word he answers the biggest questions that many poskim have. And another very interesting thing is that we see over here that how Torah, what it says, the Rambam brings it all over the place, that Torah doesn't change. Even the menu that the Yidden eat is holy. We eat today 3,500 years after Matan Torah. Our menu of that same day of Shvuos is the exact same menu that they ate then, Milchigs. Why? Because this is our tradition. It is holy. And this is basically what the Rebbe explains here in the Sichas Chelik Yitches. And let us hope that very, very soon we are going to be zeicha to the Beis Hamikdash Ashlishi, where then all the answers will be answered by Eliyahu Navi, as it says, Tish bi Yataretz Kushis V'Abayis.